Alright, so in this video I'm going to show you how to use the Georeferencer tool in QGIS 3.2. So if you don't know what georeferencing is, you're basically just referencing something geographically that's not referenced. So for example, I have this plat from the Bureau of Land Management for Township 2 South, Range 1 West. It was a survey done in 1850, and since it was 1850, GPS didn't exist back then, or web maps or any of that. So I'm going to take this piece of lovely history and put it into our fancy new technology of the 21st century. So in order to do that, we need a georeferencer tool. So we'll open up under the raster menu and pick the georeferencer. If you don't have it, you can go to the plugins tool, manage and install, look up georeferencing, and it's the Georeferencer GDAL. And then, so we'll open that up. And then I've got one open already. So we'll click on this to open up our file. And so any raster image, this one's JPEG, typically it'll be something like a TIFF. So open it up, and then I'm going to be doing 3857 as my coordinate system, which is the Google pseudo Mercator, since it's going to be on a web map, but really my source data is actually in NAD83, but anyways, that's fine. So we will look, so we've got our menu to add a point, remove a point, and then modify or move our point if we didn't like our first placement. So by default it just has adding a point selected. So we'll start adding points. We'll start in the top left corner, and then you can either put in your XY values, which I guess will typically be meters depending on the projection you have, and then I usually just use the map canvas because when you're georeferencing you probably have a base point or a data set you're trying to match it to, and it's a lot easier, at least in my mind, to go from that. So I have my snapping tools on, and I've got my data set from the BLM for the townships and ranges. So I've matched it up. We're in the same township, 2 South, 1 West. So click the top left corner, and then it automatically puts in the XY values. Click OK. Then we'll click do the other three. So bottom left from map canvas. Click OK. And then you can see the red dots from where they've been referenced. And then the top right corner for map canvas. Okay. And then the last point. Alright, and so you're thinking, great, I'm a genius, I solved all this, let's click and run it. No, it's going to whine at you and tell you to set your transformation settings, so you're going to want to do that first. So transformation settings, so there's a lot of different transformation types and there's a lot of math behind them as to why, but basically linear is for like higher accuracy maps. So if you're only just shifting it a little bit or refining it or whatever, then you're just going to have 1 or 2, maybe 3 points, and you'll pick that. But in this case, I've got a really old map. It's not super accurate. There's going to probably be a lot of distortion to get it to match up in the real world, and a lot of points. So near the end, we'll take projective or thin plate spline for those larger distortions. So for old scans, I typically prefer thin plate spline, but you can try them all out to see what works best for you. Sampling method is just how the raster is sampled. I'll just leave it as nearest neighbor for the default, and then again the coordinate reference system is 3857. I'll leave that, and then the output, it just saves it as a TIFF, which is fine with me, or you can choose to save it somewhere else. And then this UZO for transparency when needed. So if you've got like a black and white scan, if you don't set this, it will just be a blinding white thing that you have to set a transparency on. But if you change the 0 for transparency, it will actually just keep the black and hide the white. And so I think it looks a little better that way, but that's just personal preference. In this case, I have a color one, so it doesn't really make any difference for me. So I'm just going to leave it, and then I'll have it load up when it's done. And then I don't care about PDF maps. So click OK. And then those are all set, so we'll run it with the green play button. And then it should run and load it up in my map. And also as an aside, you can save the points or the reference points, so if you ever need to reference the same section or township, then you can load those points up for any other raster of the same area. Anyways, so we'll look at our map. We'll minimize this. So it looks like it matched up, and conveniently it matches the same old-timey color as my old-timey base map, so they color matched very well. So we'll put a transparency, or set the opacity a little lower to like 30, just so we can see what's behind it. So we can look at that river. So it looks like the river, it's the same river, it doesn't quite match up, but it is kind of a larger scale, and it was 170 years ago, so it's probably the river moved a little bit and maybe their surveying wasn't quite on par, but it still looks pretty good for being that old. I am kind of impressed. So it looks pretty decent. And then if you want to see how it looks with aerial imagery, I'll turn that layer on real quick. So that same river's there, looks pretty nice. Well, I'm pretty happy with it. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Maybe change that a little more. Maybe 2 more. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. And in case you're curious, I ran the different transformations on all of these, so you can kind of see the distortions from most distorted to less distorted. But I mean, at this scale, it's kind of hard to see. It may be different with more complex maps and depending on how you set it up. So I don't really know how useful this is to you, but I thought it was a fun little test. And so you can play with it to see how it works best for you, but really that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple, and it makes a nice reference for some data that maybe doesn't have any data in modern technology yet. So yeah, that's all there is. Hopefully makes your life a little easier, and until the next video.